camera here. All right. Press start here. Go live. Hello, hello. Okay. I think we're about ready. Just taking a second. There we go. Okay. Hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about feminism. We're going to be talking about how women are perceived in the world. We're going to be talking about standards of what we're supposed to be doing and what we should do and what people say and all of these things, and how we can find a healthy balance of perspective when it comes to the societal pressures that we feel as femme-facing people, and how we are spoken to and how we are thought of, and the value systems that our culture still holds, and how this all ties into capitalism, and just so much to unpack here with feminism and how we're treated and all of this stuff. So before we start, I'm just gonna say that this is not going to be about gender essentialism. I am not here to tell anyone that they are or are not a woman, or to try to define what a woman is, because I simply do not think that that is my place or my role or my area of expertise, and I have no interest in gatekeeping any of that. So if you identify as a woman and that is what feels right to you, then this applies to you, and that's what I'm talking about, and I say go for it. And if you do not, and that isn't how you feel, then that's fine too. I am more going to be focusing on just kind of what we experience in the world as someone that is perceived as a woman. Because I think that's more kind of what I'm talking about and what I'm speaking to in this video, is how people who are generally in the society perceived as women are treated, and how this affects us, and what being kind of raised as a woman and raised in that to just be, in our culture, and socialized as a woman. That was the word I'm looking for. To be socialized as a woman, and what that means, and how we speak to each other, and what we expect of each other, and what is expected of us, and how we think of ourselves, and all of that is happening. Okay, so again, just quick shout out to the Mystery School. If you are enjoying this content, and if you like watching these videos and reading the blogs and all that stuff, and you want to go deeper, and you want to engage with this content in a more linear, step-by-step way, as you learn how to love yourself and how to accept yourself and embrace yourself and set up a life that's actually going to work for you, I highly recommend checking that out. You can check that out in all the links in all the places. And if you don't know how to find it, that's totally fine. Just give me a message. I'm here for you. So yeah, just thank you for that. And thank you to everyone who's already in the Mystery School. We have private meetings every month. I'm rolling out a new program right now. It's a 3 or 4 year self-study program for just really getting past shame, blame, and guilt, and unpacking our unhealthy culture to find what is healthy. Okay, so just putting that out there, and that's good. Okay, so the inspiration for this live actually came from one of my one-on-one clients, who was talking about how when they go out into the world, and how just the ways that they are expected to be in the world because of being perceived as a woman and feeling like they can literally never win. That they feel like it is still very deeply culturally appropriate for people to ask you, when are you getting married? Are you in a couple? When are you having kids if you are in a couple or if you are married? When are you having kids? If you have kids, do you have a career? Or when are you going to return to a career? Or do you have a side hustle? And just this kind of feeling that they were expressing, that it was like literally no matter what they do, they feel like they can't win in society because it feels like no matter what they are doing, it's not the right thing or it's not enough. And then on top of that, there's the social and societal pressure that is put on women to be perpetually beautiful, to be perpetually young, to be perpetually, kind and loving and gracious and soft-spoken and gentle, but also you need to have healthy boundaries and you need to have healthy relationships and you have to respect yourself and you have to have respect. And all of this is coming down to the fact that I think, in my opinion, feminism has been co-opted essentially by capitalism and the patriarchy, and it's been turned into something that is actually, in a lot of ways, working against actually giving women the thing that we have been fighting for a very, very long time. Okay, so to kind of also add context to this conversation, we need to realize that for a very, very long time on this planet, and still to this day, and this is not everywhere and this is not always, but generally speaking, women have been treated as a second class citizen. Okay? For a very, very, very long time, people who were perceived as women were not given the same rights, freedoms, privileges, access, respect, safety, opportunity as men. And I think that if we can just start with understanding that that was where feminism came from, right? That women were treated like literal property for a very, very, very long time. We were literally traded and sold like animals, and women were given very few choices as to what they could do with their lives. They were not believed. They were believed to be hysterical. Even if we look at the way that the medical system is set up still today, right? There's so little understanding and so little research into women's health issues and the ways that, our bodies differ from men's bodies and the ways that medication work different in our bodies than they do in their bodies, and the understanding of the female reproductive system and the female hormone system and all of these things, that forever on this planet women have not had the same rights, freedoms, privileges, and accesses as men have had. And if we look at, generally speaking, what the feminist movement has always been about, it has, generally speaking, in its healthiest forms, been about advocating for equal rights for women. That we should be treated as autonomous adults who are capable of logical, reasonable thought, who are capable of making our own choices, who are capable of making good choices, and who should be treated as equals in terms of respect, opportunity, and autonomy as men. Okay? So that kind of fundamental idea that women are equally capable of making good choices for ourselves, and that women are equally capable of contributing to society ideas and information and um, say that would contribute positively to the way things are run. That is what healthy feminism is, and what healthy feminism has always fought for. Okay? So when we just kind of look at it like that, I think all of us can generally agree that women being treated as respectable human beings is something that we should all want. Yeah? And something we should all have a reasonable agreement with. Okay. Now, there have been and there still are very toxic versions of feminism that a lot of people disagree with. And I think that it makes a lot of sense that people disagree with these things, right? It's not necessarily helpful for women to hate men just because a man is a man. It's not helpful for women to say, we want to take the power away from men and make the world a matriarchy where women are dominant. It's not necessarily healthy or helpful for us to say that women are the same as men. Okay? Now, again, I'm not a gender essentialist. I am not here to tell you what a woman is versus what a man is. What I am saying is that, again, in healthy feminism, we are looking at a world where women have just as much choice for how they want to live their lives as men do. That is what we are talking about when we are talking about healthy feminism. We are not saying that there is absolutely no difference between biological females and biological males, because we know that there are differences, right? And again, I am not saying that there are only men and there are only women. We live in a very complex biological world, and I'll just use myself as an example, right? I am biologically a woman. I am biologically a woman. That being said, I am not the most femme version of a woman that has ever existed. Okay? I am very logical. I am very reasonable. I am very linear in the way that I think. And these things have, for a very long time, been attributed to the male characteristic, right? I don't want to have children. I don't want to nurture children. I don't want to have pets. I don't really want to care for things in that way. And those are characteristics that have essentially, for a very long time, been given to women, right? So to say that there is a way to be a woman or there is a way to be a man, I think is unfair. And that is why when we are saying healthy feminism, or what, at least how I'm defining healthy feminism, I'm saying women should have as much right to choose what they want to do with their lives and how they want to live their lives as men. And women should be equally respected in their viewpoints and in their self-perception and in their capacity to contribute to society as men. And that is healthy feminism, okay? In my definition of it. And now, where I think a lot of people, because right now, especially right now, like literally on social media, there is kind of this rise of anti-feminism, of people coming out and being like, you know what, we have made a mistake with this whole feminism thing. And women should really be women. and women should be submissive to their husbands, and women should be nurturing and raising children and being homemakers, and that these kind of traditional feminine, this is what a woman does, this is what a man does, roles in society are correct, and this is what people should be doing. And there are a lot of people coming out saying like, whoa, WTF, where did this come from? Why are we all of a sudden saying anti-feminism, feminism is bad for us, and we need to go back to these kind of patriarchal old school ideas of feminine and masculine, and this is what women do and this is what men do, and men are providers and women are nurturers, and this is what we should be doing, and this is what is balanced. I think where this is coming from is the idea that along with the rise of feminism and along with the rise of women being given the right to work in the workforce and to wear pants and to not have children and to not get married and to have the right to divorce and to be able to have bank accounts and to vote and to do all of these things. Part of what has happened with that is, instead of it being women now have the choice of how they want to live their lives, capitalism kind of took over. Okay, so I think, again, a lot of the time what people are pushing back on when they say they're pushing back on feminist movement, what they really mean is they're pushing back against capitalism, which has taken the feminist movement and said, yeah, women should enter the workforce, women should do all of these things, women should be contributing to production and consumption. But at the same time, women still need to be serving the role of housemaker and child rearer and financial, so the secretary of the household. She still needs to be the doting, loving, submissive wife, and she still needs to be beautiful and sexual and desirable forever. So it became something that was initially supposed to be very liberating for women, that we get to make choices for ourselves and we get to have equal standing in society as men, into women should serve the traditional role of women and the traditional role of man. This is where I think a lot of people are finding their problem with feminism. Is what they are really finding a problem with is a culture that has said, okay, women want to have equal rights. You need to now be a man and a woman. You need to go to work. You need to have a career. You need to fight for yourself. You need to be independent. You need to not need anyone or need anything. And you need to be a submissive wife. And you need to have children. And you need to be a nurturer. And you need to be young and beautiful and sexually desirable forever. Of course that doesn't feel good. And of course that feels shitty. And we are now living in a culture where this is essentially the baseline expectation of women. That if you're going to be a woman, you have to be all things and you have to do all things. So when we're seeing this rise of we should go back to traditional gender roles, I think part of that is coming from the idea, is coming from the realization, is coming from the experience that a lot of women have had, that trying to be everything and trying to do everything is exhausting and impossible. And it doesn't make us feel good, And it's not actually liberation, it's a new cage. A new cage of you need to be contributing to the economy. You need to be contributing to consumption and production. You need to be increasing profit motive for corporations while also doing all of these other things that you've always been expected to do. And that's what a woman is. Do you see what I'm saying? So, do we have any comments, questions, concerns so far? Are we kind of following what I'm saying? So, we are currently in a state, right, where women are feeling exhausted and we're feeling burnt out and we're feeling like the cultural expectation that has been placed upon us is way too heavy and way too much. Because in real reality, it is. Right? It's not that we went into a place where you now have the choice of how you want to live your life. It's we've gone into a place of, well, you want equal rights. You don't get to not do anything that you have been expected to do. You still have to do all of those things, but you also have to work a job and be a part of the economy and all of these things. Yeah? And I think that that's unreasonable. I think that this is why a lot of us are saying, okay, this doesn't work. Let's go back to how things were. And it's not because how things were are how they should be. It's not because how things were actually better or more liberating. It's because how things were simpler. It's because how things were easier for us to wrap our minds around, and it gave people a sense of not having to figure out their own lives so much, because society was handing us you are a biological female, so these are the roles that you can play. You are a biological male, so these are the roles you can play, and then you just have to just do that. You see what I'm saying? And so in a way, these gender essentialism roles give us a sense of stability, and they give us a sense of control and simplicity, because they take away that burden of having to decide what you're going to do with your life in a lot of ways, because it's kind of decided for you. Yeah? But the thing is, the ironic thing is that a lot of the people, especially the women who are preaching this, that we should go back to how things were, the gender roles and the traditional gender roles that have been a part of society for a very long time, the people who are preaching that, so many of them are only able to preach that message of anti-feminism because of feminism, right? They have a platform to speak. There are so many of these women who are coming out and being like, I was in the New Age thing, I was in the sexual liberation thing, I was in the rah, women can do and be all things world. And I got really burnt out, and I hated it, and I don't feel supported, and I feel like it turned into man bashing, and it turned into men being hated, but also I'm feeling very unsupported by my male counterparts, and like they aren't pulling their fair share of the weight. And like, right, like these ideas of when a woman works and then takes care of her children, she's working and taking care of her children. When the man takes care of the children, it's, oh good, you're babysitting. It's like, no, right? You're a man who's taking care of your own children. You're not babysitting. You're not doing a favor to your wife, right? And when a woman cleans the house after working all day, that's just what she should do. When a man cleans the house after working all day, he's done something special and deserves a reward. You see, like we're starting to get a picture of why there are so many women now coming out and saying, feminism sucks, let's go backwards. Because it's not feminism that they're actually upset with. It's capitalism that they're upset with. It's our system and our culture that said women now have to do everything that they are actually upset about. But they can't say it that way. They can't admit that that's what they're upset about, because that would be biting the hand that feeds them, right? So many of these women are career women, are women who have benefited from being able to get a divorce and being able to have a bank account and being able to run their own company and being able to go out there and tell other women what being a woman is, who have benefited from going through a phase of sexual liberation and being able to date and being able to sleep with whoever they want to sleep with and doing all of these things and not having children and using birth control and all of these things that the feminist movement has provided for them. They are pushing back against feminism while having completely benefited from feminism. And the only reason they are in the position they are in to even come out against it is because of it. And like I say, they can't call the problem because the problem is something that they're benefiting from. They are benefiting from capitalism. They are benefiting from being able to say something like fuck feminism and get a bunch of controversy stirred up, which drives a bunch of traffic to their social media, which then sells their book and sells their course on how to be a real woman. Right? That sells their book on, sells their course on how to have real, true, liberated birth versus, caged birth, whatever it is that they sell. They aren't able to say, I'm actually upset with the system that says I have to do and be everything. They're saying anti-feminism. Let's go back to how things were. But they're not even really thinking it through. Because if they really did that, if they really were committed to anti-feminism and going back to traditional gender roles, they could not have their platform. They could not have their job. They could not have left their husband when they were dissatisfied in their marriage. They could not be using birth control. They could not be dating and having fun. They could not have their own bank account. They could not vote for what they want in the world. They could not live the lives that they are living. That I'm sure many aspects of those things they would not want to give up. Right? Because, again, what they're upset about is our culture that says that women now have to be everything. And that is the problem that we actually want to address here. It's not feminism that's the problem. Feminism says a woman should be able to make a choice for herself how she wants to live her life. Feminism says women should be treated with equal respect as men. Feminism says women should have the right to contribute to society in the same ways that men can contribute to society. That is what healthy feminism is. What our culture, again, has turned it into is women need to be women and men. Women need to serve the role of both. And that's what's exhausting us. So now, if you were socialized as a woman in our culture, chances are you were socialized to believe that you have to be and do all things. You were socialized to believe that, you can do anything. You can be the president. You can do all this stuff. But if we really look at it, it's still very much expected in our culture that women are going to be partnered. Okay, so let's just look at that. women are still seen as less valuable, less worthy, less desirable, less respectable when she is not married to a man. That she has not been chosen by a man means that she is somehow defective and less than and less worthy of respect. This is a big problem that still exists in our culture. And it is something that a lot of women struggle with. That women who even choose not to get married, who choose to stay single, who choose to date and have boyfriends and never get committed, are deeply judged in our society as having something wrong with them. This is not healthy. This is not okay. Because when a man stays single, when a man doesn't have a partner, he is not judged as less than, generally speaking. He's not judged as being unworthy of love. Not the same way that women are. Right? He can just say, well, I'm focusing on my career. I'm doing whatever I'm doing. There is an imbalance in the way that men and women are valued based on how we are partnered. And this is something that is very painful and that a lot of women face a lot of deep insecurity about because of how we are socialized. Women are expected to want to have children and to have children. And there are still many, 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 many groups of people out there who say that if you're a woman and you don't want to have kids, or that if you're a woman and you don't have kids, there is something wrong with you. That you are defective on some level, that you are not how you should be, that you're not filling your role in society, that you're not filling your role in the world, you're not doing the right thing. And a lot of this is very religious. A lot of this comes from religious context. But we also have to understand that there's a political there's a political part of it too. Right? That women who have children have less time to be involved in culture. Women who have children are more controllable and predictable to our culture than women who don't. And this is something that we need to really recognize. This deep push and judgment that society has of what's wrong with you if you're not married and you don't have kids is a big problem. And it's a big stress that is put on people that don't want that. Because there is a huge range of human beings who express on all different parts of the spectrum, who have different desires for their life. And this idea that it is a woman's job to have children is still deeply ingrained in our society. And this is something that feminism is fighting back against. That just because you have a uterus doesn't mean you were designed to have children. And this could literally be a whole video in and of itself. But this idea that there is still this huge judgment on women that It's your biological function. It is part of your purpose because you have a uterus to have children that is really, really unhealthy, right? I have a uterus. I should not have children. I would be a horrible mother. And this is just fact that I don't think anyone could dispute. Because I am neurodivergent. I am autistic. I get touched out really quickly. I get overwhelmed with social stuff really quickly. The way that my brain works, there's no way that I could be the attentive, loving mother that a child would need without completely destroying myself. Second thing, I am chronically ill. My physical body is not capable of providing the energy and the love and the continued nourishment and support that a child deserves. I am not equipped to be a good mother. I have a uterus, I have all the parts, but it is definitely not part of what I should be doing here on the planet. I am really good at looking at systems, putting programs together, doing one-on-one coaching sessions. I'm really good at that stuff. But the loving, nourishing, nurturing, what you need to do in order to be a good mother, I am very much not capable of. And yet the world judges me as doing something wrong by not having children. Or judges me as not knowing myself and not knowing what's good for me and not knowing what's right for me because I don't do that. And that's a massive problem. Right? There are women out there who are the opposite of me, who are absolutely fully equipped to be amazing mothers. And that is what they want to do with their lives. That is what they want to do. That is the desire of their heart. That is what lights them up. That is a huge part of what they feel their purpose is here on this planet. And so if they make that choice, what is culture going to do? Okay, but don't you want a career? Do you have a side hustle? Do you have a thing that you're also doing? Right? It's not enough to just be a mother these days. You can't just be a single mom, or you can't just be a stay-at-home mom. And in so many ways, our culture is not set up to even support that. Even if that's what you want to do. Sometimes it's literally economically not possible. Because we don't have a culture that actually respects how much time and energy and resources are required to raise a child. So many women either are socially pressured into having a job while also raising children, or are financially pressured into having a job while raising children. And this then creates a situation where you've got like 2 or 3 full-time jobs in raising a child, plus the job of whatever your job is. And then you're exhausted and you're totally burnt out. And maybe you make enough money to hire help and all of these things, but is that a healthy society? Is that what we want? Where we're having to hire out a bunch of our life tasks because we feel forced into having a job while raising children. And then it makes a lot of women feel like they are failing no matter what they do, because they can't give their all to their kids, they can't give their all to their career, they can't give their all to their spouse or their partners. They're being pulled in all of these different directions. They're feeling exhausted, they're feeling overwhelmed. And that's just the expectation. Right? So we can see, again, where this idea of like anti-feminism is coming from. Because if the two options are, at least I get to just say, this is my role, I'm going to be a mother, I'm going to be a nurturer, and that I don't have to have a job because my husband is going to do his part of being the provider. There is some attractiveness to that. Because the alternative being, I have to do everything, I have to be everything, is so overwhelming and so deeply not fun that we can see why that might be happening. And then on top of that, like I say, the pressure that there is on women to be young and beautiful and thin and fit and whatever it is so much more than what is on men. And I don't think that anyone could really dispute that. That women judge women based on how we look so much more harshly than men judge men on how they look. That women are judged by men so much more harshly based on how we look than men are judged. So not only are we expected to have children, to have careers, to have partners, we are also expected to be beautiful and young forever. To be in our sexual prime, essentially, forever. And we are literally seen, again, as less worthy of love and respect when we lose our looks or we don't have our looks ever. Right? So in the evolution of giving women freedom of choice, unfortunately, we haven't let go of the prejudice and the stigma and the unhealthy expectations of all the eras past. We just have all of it on our shoulders now. So what's the solution? Is it really anti-feminism that we want? No. It's not anti-feminism that we want. It's healthy feminism that we want. The actual thing that we need to be working towards is, again, changing the way that we look at and value and treat women who are socialized to be women, people who are socialized to be women. So the first thing being, we need to make this transition. Okay, I think that there are many, many, many things that need to change. And here are the things that I think need to change. Number one, child rearing needs to be much more respected. The work that people who are raising children, so I think this goes for, I don't care what your biology is. If you are the main caregiver for your children, whatever your biology is, there needs to be much more societal support and respect for that job. There needs to be way more paid leave. There needs to be way more social structures that provide the people who are out of the workforce to raise their children with stability and comfort and support than there are right now. What we actually need is a culture that respects and values the effort that people who are rearing children are putting in to contributing to the future of our civilization. And there being social programs and social structures set up to support that. That is something we should actually be fighting for. Our tax money should be going towards social programs that make it easier for people to have the resources and the access they need to raise children if they're going to raise children. Second thing, birth control. This is just something that if we want an actual liberated society where people are able to make healthy choices for themselves, birth control needs to be a big part of that. Sex education needs to be a big part of that. Because when people are forced into situations where they have to raise children that they don't want or that they cannot provide for, it sets up cycles of poverty. It sets up cycles of being disenfranchised. And I believe that there is a political motivation for this that needs to be fought against. So I'm not telling you you need to be pro-life or pro-choice. I'm not telling you what I'm saying is, so long as we have a society where people don't have autonomy over their own bodies, we are not going to have a liberated society. It's not doing anyone any good. So those two things should be priorities. Next thing, women should be able to choose what they want to do with their lives versus feeling like they have to do and be everything. It is completely unreasonable that a woman should be expected to be a woman and a man in terms of following traditional roles. What has culturally been defined as what a man does and what a woman does. That a woman should have to be a breadwinner and a nurturer and a wife and the home economics person. This is unreasonable. There needs to be more socialization and societal expectation that men carry more of this burden of child rearing and taking care of the home and contributing in that way. And I think another big thing that needs to be implemented into our society is the right for couples to choose within themselves the dynamics that work for them. Rather than us entering into partnerships or, like 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, it doesn't matter. With this idea that this is what the woman should do and this is what the woman should contribute and this is what the man should do and this is what the man should. It should be 2 people coming together saying, what do we feel comfortable with together as a couple or as a group? What works for us in our dynamic? There needs to be way more education on how to have healthy communication around expectations of how finances will be shared or split, or who is going to be doing what kind of earning, and what feels fair and what feels good for both people or all people. And taking care of the home and taking care of the children and taking care of life stuff. How is that going to be divided in a way that actually feels good for the people involved? Versus it just being expected that this is what a woman does and this is what a man does. Healthy communication and healthy, this is what we are comfortable with in our dynamic. We want to combine finances. We don't want to combine finances. We want to both work. We want one of us to be the breadwinner and one of us not to be. One of us is going to raise the children. We're going to equally raise the children. These kinds of talks and this kind of what actually works for you and what actually works for me. This is actually what we want. And the fact that we don't have that, right? So many people enter into partnerships with just all this unspoken societal, this is what you're supposed to do and this is the right way and this is the wrong way. That people aren't making good choices for themselves because they don't know how to. They've never been taught how to. That needs to shift. The narrative of what a woman should look like and that her worth and her value is based on her beauty and her sexual prowess, while also being that she's not using that to tempt or to be the femme fatale or whatever, right? Like this double-edged sword of you need to be sexy and you need to be beautiful, but not too sexy and not too beautiful because you don't want to be tempting and you don't want to be a vixen. This whole thing. No. Again, what is true sexual liberation? Women having just as much right to do with their sexual lives as they see fit as men do. And what happens in your sexual life being totally up to you so long as it's two consenting, as long as everyone is a consenting adult. That being the standard. Right? Slut shaming needs to go away. Because it does nobody any good. And at the same time, this idea that it's on women to be modest, and that if she is sexually abused or sexually attacked, that she asked for it in some way, that it is her fault. No, that needs to be completely gone away with. The only person who should be punished in a situation of sexual abuse is the person doing the abusing. The person who chose to do the abusing. This idea that women are valued based on our sexuality and our beauty, but at the same time we have to hide it and be modest so that we're not tempting. This is completely imbalanced and unhealthy, and we're never going to have a healthy society until that shifts. So you see what I'm saying here? Do you see what I'm getting at? It's the foundational understanding that society has about what a woman should and shouldn't be, should and shouldn't do. That is really what needs to shift. This cultural expectation of women should be everything at all times to everyone needs to shift. And the expectation of what men should be contributing needs to shift. We are not actually upset at feminism. We're upset at a culture that says women need to be everything. And this is going to require a lot of education, a lot of standing up for ourselves, a lot of saying no, a lot of finding our enough and not going any further than that, finding our own worth, and continuing to fighting for healthy feminism. It's not feminism we have a problem with. It's the over expectation of being and doing everything that's harming us. So I would really love to hear your thoughts, because this is a complicated task. This is a complicated subject. And I think it's really important that we unpack these things and that we look for what are we really valuing and why are we doing the things that we're doing? And how can we move society forward in a way where we're not just burning ourselves out, trying to be and do everything in a way that's totally unreasonable and unhealthy. Let's look at the bigger context of what we actually want and what would actually be liberating. Okay? Okay. So that's what I have to say today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I will see you in a week. And until then, have a great day, week, night, weekend, whatever you're having. And I'll see you later.